Watch as I go down in here. It's as tall as I am, and I'm 6 foot. Whoa. Whoa, that's a little squirrely. Okay. I am down in the tunnel. I'm holding the camera right at my face level. So that's about my eye level. So right at the top of my head. And we'll go down. You can see the 6-inch pipe in the bottom of the hole. Welcome back, folks. My name is Brad, and we are out here on our 20 acres in Northwest Florida that we call Piney Grove. And today's video is going to be about how we get water from that gutter over my shoulder and another underground system that collects water off of my buildings up here and gets that behind me 200 feet to our pond. You see how low the pond is, so it is essential to us that we collect all that water that typically would go off our property onto the neighboring property and just go over there and create a mess. But we need to take all this runoff water and get it into this pond. We figure that's a 1,000,000-gallon pond. And if you get 1 inch of rain, then our water collection system should move about 3,000 gallons per inch into this pond. But it doesn't take much, a big thunderstorm, couple inches, 2-3 inches of rain to raise the level of this pond a foot or more. So the water collection system is working, and it was something that we had to get put in for 2 reasons. One, for runoff water management for the buildings that we're building. So as we build a building, we create that building creates a dam of water, so to speak, and we've got to do something with that water. We can route it around the building and have it naturally go somewhere, and that's kind of a waste. So let's just collect it and put it in our pond. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to do that to avoid digging a well. So to give you a lay of the land, up there in front of my truck, we have a pad created for our house. And our property slopes up to the west, up to that tree line. So you can see that up there around that tree line, it's probably 6 or 8 feet taller than where I'm currently standing. So I got all the water coming from that tree line, coming down, hitting the side of my shed, and then it also comes down through here and hits the side of the pole barn. And then if none of this structure was here, all of that water would just go east, and that's our property line to the east. You can see our fence line. So water naturally flows down our hill into the adjoining property, and we shortstop a lot of that water with these pads that we've built for our buildings. So again, we've got the pad for the shed, and you can see it's got a pretty good drop off there to the left, probably 4 feet or so. And then we have the pad for the pole barn, but off the end of that pole barn, it drops off 3 feet. So there's quite a bit of drop, and we get quite a bit of rainfall here in Northwest Florida. We get about 60 inches a year. This year we got 80 inches. So we have 2 problems. One, we have water that flows around our buildings trying to get to the low point. And 2, we've built a pond that doesn't have a natural spring. So to fix that, what we decided to do was collect as much rainfall water as we could up here around the buildings, around the house, off of the roof of the buildings. So we put gutters on the buildings and did a lot of things from this basin behind me. But that's for another video. Today's video is going to be about from this basin 200 and some feet to the pond. So what we're about to show you, it was my first big job with the excavator. If you've seen the excavator video, I call her Precious. Well, one of the reasons that we bought Precious is because we knew that we had to do a lot of trenching out here. We had to put in a lot of water lines, we had to put in a lot of electrical lines, and we knew that moving water around when you're building on a hillside is a problem. That it was just more cost effective to buy an excavator, use it for a couple years, and either keep it long term or sell it. So I started this dig thinking that I could go that 200 feet in maybe 1 day of digging, but I grossly miscalculated. We're going to show you basically 4 days of digging, maybe even 6 once it was all said and done. But I started right here at this post behind me and went the 200 and some feet to the pond. First thing I had to do was collect all that pipe. So I went with a 6-inch sewer and drain pipe. I was loading up my truck with all that I could afford with my paycheck that week, getting 5 or 6 pieces of pipe at $40 a piece, and then hauling them out here to the farm. And I did that week after week after week until I had about 250, 260 feet of pipe. So the pipe is the type of pipe that you just slip it together. There's no glue needed. It's got a bell end on one end and you just take a hammer and beat it together. But I have never worked with pipe that big, 6-inch pipe. And most of my drainage system is 4-inch pipe that feeds into these basins, and then it goes to the 6-inch main line that goes down to the pond. So hopefully you can tell behind me, but there is a hill between me and the pond. So I knew that the trench was going to get deep, and I figured maybe 4 feet. So keep in mind, this is the first time that I had used an excavator, for an extensive job like this, and I wasn't really sure how I was going to keep a straight line. So I pounded in a couple of metal stakes. They're just the stakes that you use when you're setting your corners on a building. And I ran a string line from the pole barn to the top of the hill. My first idea was that I will measure and then find out, put flags along this 100 and so feet up to the top of the hill, and put flags and just kind of measure and say, oh, well, the trench will have to be 2 feet deep here, and then 2 foot 6 inches here, and then 3 foot here, and so on. So I'd have the proper slope because, I wanted to make sure that this flows correctly. We're moving a lot of water. That was the way I initially was going to do it. But once I laid the string line, and then I kept the tracks of my excavator about a foot or so off the string line so I could keep a straight trench, I quickly realized there was no way I was going to be by myself without a laser level, be able to get that slope correctly by saying at this point dig 2 feet, at this point dig 3 feet. I wasn't skilled enough. It's really hard to read land and read slope. So what I ended up doing is I started the trench at the bottom of the basin. So it was down, let's say 18 inches at this post right here. So this post right here, the trench started maybe 18 inches. I would dig about 10 feet, and then I would get in the trench with a hoe and a shovel, and I would clean out the bottom of the trench and lay the pipe down there and make sure I had my slope. And I didn't fasten the pipe together. I just kind of loosely put it together because I wasn't really sure how this was all going to work out. But I worked my way through this area. I tried to keep the grass and the topsoil to that side, and then the hill of the diggings, the trenching, to that side. So I went along here, and it was fairly easy digging. It was sandy with just a little bit of clay, and it was going pretty good, but it was slow getting on and off the excavator and making sure I had the right slope, and then carrying the pipe over. I probably only got 20, 30, 40 feet on the first day, and I quickly realized this was quite a big task. So I kept working my way down the line here, and so I probably got let's say 50 feet done every day. Now keep in mind, first day on the excavator, first week on the excavator, really doing a big job. I knew the excavator had a coolant leak, so I had to be cautious about that, but it turned out that was just a loose clamp on the radiator line, but still I was worried about that. It was a used excavator, low hours, but any sound that I heard, any noises it was making, when you buy something used, you're just thinking, oh man, this thing's about to fall apart. But it wasn't. I mean, the thing ran great, but I was just being paranoid. Day 2, probably got another 50 more feet done, but the trench started getting deeper. And I'm 6 foot tall, and the trench was over my head, and it was through solid red clay. I guess I didn't realize that red clay was just going to be as deep as that excavator could go. So probably by the second day, I was maybe at the 4 foot level, and had kind of a system going. I'd lay 10 feet of pipe, or I'd probably dig about 20 feet. I'd lay about 10 feet of pipe out. I would slope it, minimal work with the shovel and the hoe in the bottom of the trench. And I didn't want to dig it too deep because I didn't want, at the pond end back there, I didn't want that 6-inch pipe way down into the pond, right? I wanted it to be as high up on the pond as it could. But I got 200 feet of pipe here, so that's quite a bit of waterhead. But I didn't want the pipe on that end to be so far underwater that it would back up here where all the water was coming from. So, day 2, day 3 comes along, and I'm probably up here in this hill. I probably was starting to reach that 5 or 6 foot mark. There's a lot of interesting things that go on with an excavator at 6 feet. Number one, the soil is clay and it's tight. So when I'm scooping that soil, the excavator is just creaking and crunching because you know, it has teeth that are a little bit wider than the 18-inch bucket. Those teeth are made so you make a trench wider than the bucket so the bucket doesn't get stuck. But when you're dealing with clay and you're 6 feet deep at the extent of your excavator, and your excavator is sitting at a little bit of an angle, those teeth that are making that extra wide trench aren't making a wide enough trench to pull the bucket out. So it was quite a task. I'd go down, you know, that 5 or 6 foot depth, and I'd get a bucket of dirt and literally would trap the bucket at the bottom of the trench because I couldn't pull it up. And so I walked through it. I really wasn't worried about cave-ins or anything like that. I was like, man, this is solid clay. And there were some times as I got up here on this hill that I was thinking I maybe had outkicked my punk coverage. I'm digging at the max depth here, and I'm trying to keep this slope. I'm going in this trench, and this trench is over my head. I actually went home and told my wife what I was doing, and she's like, that thing could cave in on you. So I think I was at like 6.5 feet. So I'm digging straight down under the excavator and trying to clean it up. And I left a little bit. I had to dig just a little bit more. I was at the crest of the hill. I had to dig a little bit more, and so I had to go back over my trench. So I'm straddling the trench with the excavator, and I just feel the excavator kind of do a little wobble, and I was like, oh no, here's a cave-in. But there was a sand pocket, and when I got the excavator from not straddling that anymore, got it back on high ground where there was no trench dug, it caved in. And it caved in 20 feet or so where that sand and clay mix was. That set me back quite a few hours because now I had to come from the side. I had to move the trenching pile that I had there. And well, now that got me thinking, should I really be in that trench? And that haunted me for a couple of nights because I knew eventually I had to get in that trench with a sledgehammer and connect all of that piping together. This is probably about where it caved in. And then the hill starts going down towards the pond, so the trench gets shallower. So we got to about this point here where you see that white sand right there. And I decided to go on the pond side and dig up from the pond side. But unfortunately, I learned that it's really difficult to marry up two trenches, right? I had a string line on one trench coming from the pole barn, and that trench was fairly perfectly straight. Well, this put a little jog here, put a little angle in my trench, and 6-inch pipe does not bend. So when I'm trying to marry up those two trenches, I'm now digging on one side of the excavator and I spin it around to the trench, and I've got all the land or the dirt under the excavator that's about 4 foot deep that I haven't dug out yet. So I dug as much as I could up under the excavator from both sides while my excavator tracks are over the trench. That was difficult for me to figure out, and I actually ended up doing a lot of hand digging because I didn't want to have this wide V-shaped trench. I wanted to have this deep, narrow trench. So I did a lot of hand shoveling. I put the excavator in some precarious positions, and I didn't record all that, and I wish I had, but I put the excavator on the hill, different positions, and turned the boom different ways, and was able to scratch out most of that or loosen up that clay. And then I got in there, and I probably had to do 4 or 5 hours of shoveling to get that thing, get the two trenches married up. But once I did that, then the next day was to put that pipe in the trench. But doing the area up by the pole barn was easy. That was a couple feet deep. You're in a trench up to your knees, you're in a trench up to your waist. You start getting in the trench up to your chest, and you start thinking about, what if this thing caves in? So again, it had not caved in anymore except for that first day, but the thought was in my mind. I did as much as I could where I felt safe. I had a ladder in there, and I'd move the ladder, and I figured if I hear anything, I'm gonna jump on this ladder and get out of this trench. But let me tell you, that scared me more than I thought it would. So anyway, by day 5, I think I got it all in. Had all the pipe in. I had it connected to the basin. I had the Ys in, that one went to the pole barn, and then one went to the shed to collect those gutters. And then I had it emptying where I wanted to in the pond. The next step was to rock where the water goes into the pond, so it didn't wash that out. So I put some silk cloth down and in the trench, and I had some leftover busted up concrete that we had bought to put around our culverts around the pond. So I got that done. I got that rocked in, and then I backfilled the trench with the excavator. So I packed the trench as best as I could, and then got it all filled in. And then once I got the trench packed, and then I left a 4-inch white pipe sticking up where I had to connect into it later, and then I backfilled it. We hooked to the tiller and we tilled it, and we planted grass seed, and then we put a couple bales of hay on top of it to seed that grass. And that's what you see behind me where this T-post is. So that was the 6-inch pipe. I've really been wanting to get this video out there because it was quite a project. But in the end of the day, between the KX71-3 Super Series excavator and the Kubota 3901, just two invaluable tools to do this job. And you know, there's people that look at this and go, man, that was easy, you know, I do that every day. Well, I don't do that every day, right? I'm a computer scientist. I'm a manager for the US Navy, and I grew up on a farm, but I don't put in 200 feet of 6-inch pipe 6 foot deep every day. For those of you that are contemplating taking on something like that, you can do it. You got to be safe, you got to give it some thought, and but you can definitely do it. You don't need to hire someone, because now looking back, if I had hired someone, even someone that can, you know, dig so much better than me and so much quicker than me, they couldn't have got that trench dug in a day. All right, I believe that's a wrap for this one, folks. Thanks for joining us as we explained how we put in that pipe going from the pole barn down to the pond. Hopefully you enjoyed today's content. If you did, please give us a big thumbs up. It'll really help out our channel. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and please share with your friends if they enjoy this type of content. Until the next one, we'll catch you later. Take care. Spin it fast. Just spin?
I think this is more fun to spin.
You spin?
You know, like spinning. I think spinning is my favorite.
Well, it's the easiest.